Hi everyone, welcome back. As usual, I ran over in the first section. I think it's like my brain gets on this storytelling track and off it goes. And so, work in progress. I think some of them are relevant. I hope so. If they're not, please tell me, and I'll do away with them. But I tried, like I said, the textbook is pretty straightforward. Including the slide deck, that's extremely straightforward. And once you've seen the quiz, you'll see how how tight the connection is between the book and the slides. And I'm trying to fill in a little of the real world stuff. I mean, that's kind of my goal, is to kind of liven this up a little bit by giving you some things that you're going to see out there. And it's, as I mentioned, it's going to be pretty competitive out there. Not just now, but for at least a little while to come. Hopefully this all passes quickly and things get back to normal, but there's no telling. Nobody knows. Really for this section of chapter 1, there's really only two things to cover. One is the impact of the globe on the economy. Now, again, that's moot. And then a couple chapters later on, we have a chapter on globalization. Again, that chapter will be abbreviated to a large extent when globalization is not going on. Now, what I will do is take some time to say, here's what can be expected when things get back to normal, and here's the role globalization plays, and why do companies have initiatives towards globalization. And I think that's important. And therefore, I think that deserves a fair amount of discussion. So we will have that discussion. And then the other is evolution of U.S. business. And again, something else that's discussed in more detail later on in the book. Effectively, 250 years ago, or back in the late 1700s, when people first came here and Native Americans were the only people here, there wasn't much of anything from a standpoint of industrial business, right? I mean, there was no factories, all there was raw materials and labor. Okay, so, it was pretty things were pretty cut and dried as far as the development of business, meaning that, when you got here, Maslow is a philosopher and psychologist, and he had this hierarchy of needs. Starts at the top with food, secondly shelter, and then it goes all the way down to, cuddling with a warm puppy or something like that. I don't know, just, you know where I'm going. Okay. We'll let that go. But basically, when people came here initially to settle the United States, if you needed it, you built it. And then things expanded from there. Trade started to take place, so on and so forth. And that gets into more detail. There's really very little, if any, on the quiz on those two sections of chapter 1. Okay, and then the last sort of chunk of it is progress in service industries. Service industries, of course, is anything that's not a tangible good. Tangible good being something you could physically touch. An iPad, refrigerator, your car, stereo, guitar, etc. Those are goods. Services, healthcare, education, music, those type of things. The service industry actually is the largest component of, and there's a question I had to yank out of the exam last year because it was a bad question. It basically talks about the fact that growth of the service industry. Okay, the size of the service industry is according to the book, is 80% of the economy. That number fluctuates, I believe, to some extent. But then the growth of it is slowed. So the question was something about the growth of the service sector is a problem for the U.S. economy. Well, anything slowing is a problem, but it's disproportionately large for the services sector because so many people are in the services sector, and especially in your age demographic, right? I mean, you don't need me talking about this for the most part. I mean, most of you may see it firsthand. I mean, the service industry is restaurants, bars, retail, health clubs, those type of things are all service industry related. And a lot of people that are in the 18 to 22 age group work in those type of places. I mean, I worked basically farm work, and I worked as a welder. I mean, that was sort of a little different, but those were services too, right? I mean, working on a farm and working as a welder, I mean, that's services work for all intents and purposes. I guess you could argue that welding is also manufacturing, so because you see it there as well. And then the last part of the chapter, and we'll leave right after this, is talking about your place in the business world. And again, perspectives change, industries change. I mean, we talked about seeing how whole industries can be wiped off the face of the earth. I use the example of that flash drive. What used to be $65 million for a 65 megabyte drive is now $6.95. And so that completely eliminated that industry altogether, or eliminated who used to be the key players in that industry. Same thing with software. Software changes a lot. So these are all things that the world changes quickly, and you need to be adaptive. And my recommendation is sort of what I would call the ongoing learning process. I feel strongly that, I mean, what I hope comes out of this class by the end of it is not only a desire to take more business courses, but to get more education in general, because it's going to be of great benefit to you. I mean, the broader you see the world, the better off you'll be. I mean, and it's there'll be a lot of different ways you'll be able to go in your career, and the more exposure you have to different disciplines, so much the better. So I think I can leave it at that. We've gone about 38 minutes, I think. So that takes us just about to the 40-minute videotape target, and then we'll take a short break, and then we'll reconvene on WebEx and bring your ideas, and we'll discuss in detail. Thanks.